A hush fell over the nation that bright May morning, when the palace finally confirmed that Meghan Markle had delivered her first child. Yet the mood in press rooms from London to Los Angeles felt less like celebration and more like the uneasy calm after a sudden power cut. Something essential, trust, clarity, the ritual coordination that usually shepherds every royal birth, had simply gone missing. 12 full hours had passed between the palace's first whispered hint that the Duchess was in labor and its short, almost grudging declaration that a baby boy now existed. That gap was a canyon, and once the public peered over the edge, they discovered it was deeper, stranger, and slipperier than anyone expected. It was the moment the benevolent fairy tale of a modern royal couple twisted into a sprawling mystery. And it all began with the palace's choice to go silent at the exact moment they had vowed, publicly, plainly, on the record, to speak. Reporters were ready. They had been told to stand by for an alert the instant Meghan went into labor, a promise that fit decades of precedent. Nothing of the sort appeared. Instead, the official channels waited until the boy had drawn his first breaths, until the nurses had cleaned and swaddled him, until Harry himself was said to be floating with relief, before pushing a press office email whose tone sounded almost inconvenienced, as though journalists ought to have known all along. Those same journalists scrambled. Some phoned sources at hospitals, others pored over traffic camera feeds for a glimpse of royal motorcades. All they found were contradictions. And those contradictions bred the first serious questions about a royal child in the direct line of succession since the monarchy's media renaissance began in the 80s. Timing was only the opening act. Within hours, curious observers began noticing an odd, almost theatrical precision in the events that followed. The palace's labor alert blackout just happened to funnel the definitive birth announcement into the American morning show slot favored by U.S. publicists. A carefully curated Instagram post, released minutes after those breakfast anchors wrapped their bright-eyed segments, ensured the Sussex narrative landed first in California influencers' feeds, then rolled westward with the sunrise. Such coordination was the hallmark of hard-charging Hollywood PR, not the stiff upper lip machine at Buckingham Palace, and it set off alarm bells among veteran royal correspondents. Tradition might bend, they conceded, but it had never bent this far without reason. Why were centuries-old protocols meant to keep the line of succession transparent, being rewritten overnight? The inconsistencies accumulated like wet leaves in a gutter. One senior palace aide insisted the Duchess had been bundled into the exclusive Portland Hospital in central London. Another swore she had remained at Frogmore Cottage under the care of a private midwife. By sundown, a press officer told a third outlet the Duchess had only just gone into labor, a statement already disproved by the official birth notice. Two truths cannot both be true, reporters fumed, and the palace's stammering denials only sharpened the sense that something delicate was being hidden. Then came the bump, or more precisely, bumps. Plural, because on some days Meghan's pregnancy belly looked small and high, on others broad and low, and on at least one viral video it appeared to fold inward when she bent to greet a child. Internet detectives slowed the footage, looped it, overlaid grid lines as if studying a lunar landing hoax. Was it lighting? A trick of fabric? Trickery at all? None of those theories would have gained traction had the palace simply clarified matters. Yet each request for comment was met with the same policy-heavy shrug. Privacy. But privacy is a frail defense when the person in question is carrying a potential future prince, and so speculation metastasized. Whispers of a surrogate crept from fringe blogs to mainstream tabloids, whispered on morning radio, debated on primetime panels. A rumor that might have been suffocated with one frank paragraph instead swelled into a global guessing game. Fueling those rumors was the riddle of where exactly baby Archie entered the world. Every modern royal heir, Charles at Buckingham Palace, William and Harry at St. Mary's Lindo Wing, George, Charlotte, and Louis in the same celebrated ward, arrived amid flashing cameras and brisk medical bulletins. Archie's birthplace, however, remains unconfirmed even today. The palace has never filed an official medical letterhead naming the attending physicians. Persistent requests under Britain's Freedom of Information Act have yielded nothing. Courtiers protest that privacy is paramount, yet historians note that royal births have always required witnesses precisely to rule out doubts about lineage. Without that formality, skeptics argue, the public must lean on faith alone, and faith was the very commodity Harry and Meghan had begun to squander. As the days wore on, missteps hardened into what felt like deliberate stonewalling. Reporters learned that the press office cited a technical email fault to explain why journalists received the labor alert so late. To professionals who send hundreds of press releases a day, that excuse rang hollow. In 2019, an unsent email could have been forwarded, resent, even tweeted. Instead, the palace let the better part of a day slip by, then blamed the slip on electrons. Trust, once chipped, cracked wide open. Harry's exuberant doorstep interview did little to cement the facts. He emerged with a boyish grin, praising Meghan's strength in labor, yet declined to reveal the hospital, the attending staff, even the time of birth. He called the experience amazing, but offered no concrete details that might anchor the story. To sympathetic ears, he sounded like a man savoring new fatherhood. To skeptical ears, he sounded as if he were improvising around a script he dared not read aloud. The couple's next move intensified the disquiet. They staged Archie's debut not on the steps of St. Mary's, where generations of royals had faced clicking shutters, but deep inside Windsor Castle, in a softly lit hallway guarded by stone lions and tighter still by aides who screened every lens. Only one camera crew was permitted. No shouted questions pierced the ceremonial hush. When curious journalists learned that the chosen time, 12:40 p.m. UK, conveniently corresponded to the first broadcast slot for America's highest-rating morning shows, they smelled a maneuver, not a coincidence. The palace insisted the timing merely fit the Queen's own schedule, yet no photographs surfaced of Archie meeting his great-grandmother that day. In the absence of proof, rumor enjoyed a second wind. Meanwhile, online speculation about Meghan's abdomen became a sport. On Monday, the bump seemed perched high beneath her ribcage. By Wednesday, it touched her hips like a dropped beach ball. By Friday, eagle-eyed viewers shared slow-motion clips in which the silhouette appeared to sway independently from her torso. Could editing artifacts create that illusion? Perhaps. Could certain fabrics exaggerate movement? Certainly, but every palace refusal to clarify nourished the gossip. One might forgive new parents for guarding their privacy, critics argued, but they were not ordinary parents. Their son was seventh in line to the throne. Royal precedent demanded openness, not influencer-style exclusivity. Months passed. Archie grew unseen behind the high walls of Frogmore, while tabloids teemed with sources close to the Sussexes, insisting everything was normal. Yet every new photograph, cropped, filtered, carefully timed, fanned suspicion. Observers noted that the couple's Netflix docuseries promised raw insight, yet offered only curated home movie snippets that neither confirmed nor discarded surrogate rumors. By refusing to show mundane truths, a baby in a hospital bassinet, a standard birth certificate, the face of a midwife, the Sussex media plan invited audiences to fill in blanks with their own conjecture. The royals faced a second crisis when baby Lily's arrival triggered déjà vu. Again, the palace briefed the press at a curious time that slotted neatly into U.S. news cycles. Again, reporters discovered conflicting statements about whether Meghan had been admitted to a California hospital or delivered privately at home. Again, a social media post bore the official seal. Patterns became visible. If the first birth's confusion had owed to novelty or nerves, the second suggested strategy: control the narrative by starving press of details, then saturate transatlantic outlets with flattering imagery. It was a Silicon Valley tactic wearing a regal tiara, and it shattered the unspoken understanding between monarchy and media that certain milestones belong to the public record. By 2023, cracks within the palace press office widened into chasms. Senior courtiers leaked frustrations about the couple's refusal to share basic documentation. One veteran aide grumbled to a broadsheet that he had spent 30 years ensuring royal births remained beyond question, only to watch those safeguards discarded for an Instagram post. Another lamented that historians in a century would be left guessing about events he had witnessed in real time, but could not archive because no paperwork was ever released. In the cloistered culture of Buckingham Palace, such leaks were the equivalent of flares fired into a night sky, warnings of distress and of dissent. The public mood tracked that erosion. Opinion polls showed trust in the Sussexes sliding each quarter. Harry's heartfelt revelations about therapy and trauma moved some hearts, yet even sympathetic listeners wondered why openness about his mental health could not coexist with openness about his children's births. When a California court filing briefly sealed both children's vaccination records, a routine privacy measure in the United States, British commentators erupted. Why, they demanded, should U.S. privacy laws shield individuals who still held royal titles Funded in part by UK taxpayers, each flare-up dredged the same root question. What precisely happened in those shadowed hours before the world was told Prince Archie was born? It would be comforting to write that hard evidence eventually surfaced, that a midwife stepped forward or a hospital registrar produced a notarized ledger, and that the puzzle pieces finally clicked into a tidy picture. In truth, nothing so definitive arrived. What did arrive, repeatedly, were small revelations that re-energized internet detectives. A Portland hospital administrator admitted, off the record, that no VIP suite was occupied by the Duchess on the alleged date. A staffer at the nearby Kensington wing remembered a flurry of Secret Service-style activity, only to learn later it involved security drills, not a birth. These tidbits never coalesced into proof, but they kept the mystery evergreen. By the spring of 2025, the saga had transcended royal gossip and entered the cultural bloodstream as a cautionary tale about transparency in an age of curated realities. College media studies courses dissected the Sussex communications strategy alongside reality show cliffhangers. PR agencies cited the birth blackout as a prime example of how starving the public of facts can backfire in spectacular, uncontrollable ways. Podcasts titled Bumpgate investigated in 10-part seasons. Even the palace, walled tight against admission, quietly revised internal guidelines to ensure future royal labors would revert to older, clearer procedures, an unwritten confession that something, somewhere, had gone badly wrong. Where does that leave Archie Harrison Mountbatten Windsor? He is a 6-year-old boy who attends school in California, takes karate, and reportedly loves the beach. He is also a living bookmark in a story the monarchy cannot close until it satisfies the lingering doubts his birth awakened. Every family portrait that omits clear medical records, every stylized Mother's Day snapshot without a hospital stamp, reopens questions that should have been laid to rest the day he arrived, and every unanswered question prickles at the foundations of an institution that survives only so long as the public suspends skepticism in favor of pageantry. Royal observers sometimes whisper that the mystery will dissolve of its own accord when Archie comes of age and steps forward, perhaps in a television interview, to describe his childhood like any modern public figure. Yet others counter that legal proof is the only balm. In a realm where lineage once meant the difference between war and peace, faith cannot substitute for documentation. To shrug away uncertainty would be to invite 100 future claimants armed with conspiracy theory YouTube playlists to dispute every royal title. For now, 3 immutable facts remain. First, the palace promised transparency and delivered obfuscation, creating a vacuum where trust should have been. Second, Meghan and Harry either knowingly designed or carelessly allowed a communications plan that prioritized American publicity over the customs that protect royal legitimacy. Third, the public noticed, and it has not forgotten. Those facts alone ensure that the riddle of Prince Archie's birth will resurface each time the monarchy's credibility wavers, a dormant volcano whose next rumble could shake the House of Windsor in ways its courtiers still underestimate. And so the story rests, unsolved yet unforgettable, poised on the knife edge between fairy tale and cautionary saga. Was there a surrogate, a secret hospital room, an orchestrated photo op timed to a US morning show down to the second? Until the palace releases the cool, dry paper trail every other royal infant carries like a silent shield, the public will keep filling silence with speculation. The mystery has become part of the monarchy's modern lore, a permanent question mark trailing the Sussexes' every endeavor. Perhaps years from now, Archie himself will shrug off the myths with a laugh, waving a well-creased birth certificate on late-night TV. Until that day, one nagging query will hover over every jubilant royal announcement. If they bent the truth once, where else might the seams be loosening? That's a wrap on today's rundown. Thanks for hanging out. If you vibed with the story, smash that like so the algorithm knows we're worth sharing. Got thoughts, hot takes, or tea we missed? Drop them in the comments. And if you're new here, hit subscribe and ring the bell so you're first in line for the next drop. And we've got plenty more juicy scoops coming your way.